Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining for our Tap into Love show. My name is Olga Batreva. I'm a relationships coach and advanced past EFT practitioner. And today I'm very honored to have a guest on our show. So this is our Spotlight series. And please welcome amazing Stasha Washburn. Hi,
Hello.
Stasha. I'm super excited to have you here, because I've been going through a few things in the last year that you personally helped me with. And I'm just really excited to introduce you to my community, because I know women in my community, they have similar issues. And I don't even have enough language and understanding to talk about this kind of issues. And, being able to learn more about your work and being able to be part of your Facebook group, it really helped me see some things in a totally different light than I've seen before. So Sasha is a period coach, and she helps women to navigate through that part of the life with more ease and grace and less mood swings and less cravings. So Sasha, would you mind tell us just a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you for having me. I love sharing all this information, and that's kind of the deal. Is we didn't get this information. Nobody really talks about it because taboo.
Tabu,
So
yeah.
this is all. The more we have these chats and talk about it, the more everyone listening can take it home and share it, and I hope you do. So please feel free to share.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, so I got started. I have undiagnosed endometriosis. I never had the surgery to confirm, but it's passed down through the matriarchal line. I have all of the classic symptoms. My mom and my aunt had it. So it's very, I live in the US and I didn't have health insurance from the age of like 18 to 35. So, how were you going to, how was it going to get diagnosed? So in any case, one of the things about endo is it's completely takes you out. You can't do anything. Standing up is too much. I pretty much just laid on the floor of my bathroom throwing up for 3 days in incredible pain. And the days before that were always like 20 hours of sleep, utterly fatigued, in pain, just waiting for the storm to come. And then it did, and it was not pleasant. So it was about 2 weeks out of the month that I was useless. And I had tried all of the drugs. I have tried the drugs that were experimental and recalled. I mean, I've tried all of the drugs. So I basically just had to live with it. And I thought, well, I need to do something that's less physically demanding. I was a dancer. I taught at studios like ballet bar and yoga and Pilates. I bartended, the things you have to do to pay your bills when you're an artist. So everything I was doing was physically demanding. And I thought, God, I need to rest. Like, I can't do this anymore. So I decided to become a health coach. I was going to help athletes. That was my plan. Like, I was a dancer. I was going to help athletes. And then it turned out all of my athletes were women, because that was just where I worked, was, women-centered studios. And then they all had period problems. So turns out it was a lot easier to fix their problems. Endometriosis is different in that it's not just a hormonal imbalance. So I was able to help all of them. And I thought, well, you know what? I don't want anyone feeling like this. And if I can help everyone else, then why don't I just do that? So I started just exclusively working with women with hormonal imbalances. Through 20 years of research and self-experimentation, I did finally figure out what worked for my endometriosis. So I am in what I call remission. There is no cure. But there's no cure for anything. It's really about finding balance in your body. And that's sort of what I've just been doing ever since, was helping women find that balance in themselves and their body. And then it was just time to take it to a bigger scale. 90% of women are going to have a hormonal imbalance at some point in their life.
Yeah.
That's not our fault. That's not 90% of women aren't doing it wrong. It's the culture, it's the shroud of secrecy, it's the inability to talk to each other, and it's the lack of information and research. So it occurred to me my task was bigger than just working one-on-one with one woman at a time. That was going to be fruitless. effort. It was time to start talking to more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is so fascinating, Stasha. Thank you for sharing your journey and what kind of led you to where you are. Because I'm part of your community, and one of the days that I absolutely love is hashtag Taboo Tuesday. So that's the days when we can talk about things that are not okay to talk about in our society, right? And some of them have to do with sex, some of them have to do with periods, some of them have to do with some other bodily functions.
Yep. I posted about pooping.
Right, like, stuff.
But
So I think it's important to learn how to talk about difficult things with both, women
yes.
and men. But also it's important to understand what your cycle is, what your period does with your body, how and what's happening. And I am not gonna lie to you guys, I still don't understand it. But things that I've learned from Stasha definitely help me navigate from this with much more ease. Before we started this conversation, I was jokingly mentioning to her, like, yeah, let's tell women when they don't need to tap, they just need a nap.
Yes, absolutely.
Because literally, maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my client. He said, Olga, we had a great session, and I'm so grateful. We tapped a lot of stuff. But after that, I was a couple of days before my period, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was like in this emotional. I was like, oh no, that's totally fine. It's part of this. And I was like, I gotta talk to Stasha. So Stasha, tell us a little bit about how the period works. I know there are 4 phases, and maybe can you just lead us briefly through, that journey, and what kind of things important to pay attention, in both, your business and personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I will start with is that if you don't have a cycle for any reason, pregnancy, breastfeeding, hysterectomy, menopause, whatever, transgender, it doesn't matter, whatever reason you may not be cycling physically, you're still cycling with the moon, right? The whole world, the tides ebb and fall, we ebb and flow, and there's an undeniable connection there, which I won't get into, but I just want to say, if you are not cycling for any reason, menstruation is the new moon, ovulation is the full moon, and I'll talk about that as I go through the 4 phases, but just keep in mind you still have those innate energy shifts that come with the moon.
So just to confirm, because I actually do have a friend who never had a period, and so that information will apply to her too, right?
Yeah.
She has still the cycle. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah, and everyone does. Men do. I mean, as a bartender for 10 years in New York City, and more than that elsewhere, we knew not to have as many people on staff during the new moon. Just not as many people came in. They didn't drink as much. They didn't get rowdy. But on the full moon, we made sure we had an extra bouncer or an extra bar back, because everybody was going to end up either having sex in the booths or fighting or both. And either way, we were going to have to ask people to put on their clothes and please leave. So, and my friend was is an ER nurse in New York City still, but we used to joke that I would get them drunk and send them to him on the full moons. And he always had extra nurses on staff during the full moons, because they just know people have extra energy. They don't understand why. They're not acknowledging it. So they don't know what to do with it. So they go out and drink too much and get up, end up fighting or fucking, as we always said. And they just, because they don't know how to use that energy. They don't know how to make it, we used to have full moon, like every culture had a full moon bonfire or ceremony or something. Like every culture around the world had something that used that energy around the full moon, and we don't. So whether or not you have a cycle or not, that moon phase is something. And the hottie, as we call him, my boyfriend, he and I have a tradition around the full moon where we do a full moon meditations together, so that we're grounding that full moon energy so we can sleep better that night. And it's been a lot of experimentation and trying different things, and we still are kind of trying different things as we do it, but we always do something. So
let me ask you this. So it's 2 different things we're essentially talking about, right? Your personal cycle, and also there's the moon cycle.
Yeah.
And the way how they, sort of, you'll have a different picture and different things happen. Yeah. But since you mentioned about the moon, this is not something that I'm actually familiar at all, but I'm curious learning. Can you give us like a 2-3 minutes spiel on what is that referring to? Like, so you mentioned something like a full moon is when you have more energy and sometimes you do crazy things.
Yeah. So if you are menstruating, you're going to have to chart, right? Which just means tracking your cycle and the moon cycle. And like, I have a mandala where you chart both at the same time. So you can really see how it corresponds. And you're going to have to see how your energy changes depending on where you are in your cycle and where the moon is in its cycle. If you're not menstruating, then it's much easier because you just have to pay attention to the one and your energy. But if you are cycling, and I see this a lot in my business clients where they'll shift so that they're getting their period during the full moon and they're ovulating during the new moon, which is opposite energies. So I've seen it consistently over the years. And I think a big part of that is it's almost like our body's going, okay, you need a little extra energy because you've got this big event happening. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bleed with the full moon. So you have a little bit more energy carrying you through your bleed. And then when we get to the new moon, you're going to have that ovulation energy. So we're going to kind of help you get through this. And then as soon as we finish those big projects, I see women immediately flip and get into the new moon bleed again, where it's like deep, deep, deep rest time. Because not only is the new moon energy that lower napping internal energy, so is menstruation. So it's like now you have that permission to go deeply, deeply rest in a way. And then it's not to say that this is concrete and it happens to everyone every time. And the more that we're doing things to continue our cycles, the easier it gets. But I do see it happen, and there is no right or wrong. It's just about knowing what's going to happen, knowing how your body is reacting to things, and then just using the information to your advantage. That's what it comes down to.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the phases that most women are aware of, and that's something that appears very bright and big in my life, is the few days right before your period and the few days right after the period. So those are the one that's very heightened. And so as you guys are listening, start noticing that time in a month for you, because for Stasha, it's probably something that she was tracking for years, right? But for people like me, it's only been about a year into me understanding and learning, and I'm like almost 40, right? Like I'm an educated, intelligent woman, but I really didn't know anything about this particular area. And it's so impactful because that's the time when I pick up a fight with my partner. That's the time when I just cannot get myself to do webinar planning or any business tasks, and I just want to nap a lot. Well, that's the time when like my energy level is so low, and I wouldn't stop beating myself for being lazy, but it has nothing to do with lazy. So Stasha, can you talk a little bit about that particular time of the cycle? Because I think most women struggle there the most.
So I think what you have to do is look at it this way. The menstrual cycle is like the 4 seasons. So if you think of your period, day 1 of your cycle as your winter phase, what is going on during winter? You're hibernating, you're eating rich, nutrient-dense foods, stews and sweet potatoes and, those winter foods. You're nourishing and you're resting. That's what winter is. That's what the seeds do. That's what the trees do. That's what the animals do. Literally everybody does it. So it's that winter time, and it's yin. It's your yin. That's why we call it the new moon, because it's that rest time. It's the darkness. It's the yin. It's the deep, dark waters. So really embrace that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with embracing that. But then that means the next phase is your follicular phase, which is spring. Your energy starts to rise. Things are actually starting to grow, even in your own body. Your ovaries or the follicles are ripening eggs. So like literally you're sprouting seeds, like quite literally. So you're in that springtime, your energy starts to rise, which is when most of us go, oh, now I feel like a normal person again. Problem is that you were normal before too. That's that judgment language of what is socially acceptable and what's not. So you were normal before, now you're starting to feel that rise of energy. That's great. Your estrogen is rising, your energy is rising. That's perfectly normal. Ovulation is that peak.
So just summer. Just to confirm, so the first one it's gonna be the menstrual phase. Yep. It's called, right? And I guess it lasts somewhere between like
5 to 7 days on average. And it's a circle, so there's not technically a beginning or an end, right?
You
It's
have to
like,
start somewhere. Huh?
yeah, but that's the easy one to see. So that's where we start because it's obvious.
Exactly. And then the follicular, how long is that one on average?
5 to 7 days.
Also 5 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you were saying next one?
So then ovulation is next.
Ovulation.
It's 3 to 4 days.
Okay.
An egg is only viable for 24 hours. 48 at the outside, but like 90%, like, well, I'm not going to give you a quote there, but most women, it's 24 hours is the viable length of an egg. So ovulation phase is about 3 to 4 days. And that's when you see a lot of cervical fluid. We call that the sploosh moment in my community. You see a lot of cervical fluid. It's generally like raw egg whites. It's very liquidy.
Is it where you feel like really sexy and just kind of like attractive?
Yeah, you really feel that ramp up in your follicular phase because you're fertile in your follicular phase and your ovulation phase. So you'll really feel that sexiness ramp up into ovulation and peak there. You rarely need a lot of foreplay. You rarely need a lot of extra time. It's like, babe, take off your clothes already. Holy crap. It's fun in that way. It's your summer. It's your peak.
Oh, that's the summer. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Right? The thing is about summer is if you have summer all of the time, you turn into the Sahara. You cannot have summer all of the time. So as much as women get to their ovulation phase and then they want to stay there because it's been like about a week and a half of starting to feel really good and quote unquote normal, we like claw in and go, okay, I'm never leaving. This is how I'm supposed to feel all the time. This is where I'm being rewarded by the culture around me for being awesome and at my best. But it's not, you're not any worse in the next phase to come or your menstrual phase. It's just that we're, patted on the head at this point as being good examples of how to act in your masculine. And it's great, and embrace it and enjoy it because you should, and there's nothing wrong with our masculine. But then when we move into the next phase, which is your luteal phase, and I break it up into luteal and deep luteal. So this is the time between ovulation and your period, and it can last from 7 to 14 days. It expands and contracts depending on your stress levels, nutrition, all sorts of things. So it can expand to 10, 14 days generally. But basically that's what finishes that 29 is the average of a menstrual cycle, 29-day cycle. That doesn't mean that being 23 days is wrong. That's perfectly within the realm of normal. That doesn't mean 32 days is wrong. That's absolutely, you can have a healthy menstrual cycle between 23 and 32 days. That's perfectly within the realm of normal. You just want to make sure you're ovulating. That's really what it comes down to, is you want to make sure you're ovulating. That's a healthy menstrual cycle. It has to have ovulation. So that's the key, is making sure that you're ovulating.
So talk to us a little bit about the luteal and deep luteal phases.
Yeah.
I think that's where the moodiness, and that's one of the also society commonly known. I think that's the only time when society talks about menstrual stuff. They say PMS. Oh, she's in PMS. Oh, she's hormonal. Oh, she's mood, right?
Yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit what's happening in the body, how to navigate.
Yeah, that first part of the luteal phase after ovulation is about 10 days long. And this is what happens is when you ovulate, your hormones, your estrogen, your testosterone, those peak. When you come out of ovulation, they both dip. So a lot of times right after ovulation, women will feel like one day where they're like, oh man, I need a nap. Or like, boy, I don't feel as zesty as I did yesterday. And then they start to feel better again. And that's because our estrogen climbs back up. So this is that first, it's the late summer phase. Think of it as sitting in the front porch, drinking a nice iced beverage, whether that be tea or spiked tea. But you're drinking a nice cold cocktail. The days are not quite as long as they were, but they're still long. You're finishing the harvest. Right now it's time to get everything in off the vines. You're finishing the harvest. And a lot of women will feel an instinct to tie up loose ends. They'll start going, oh man, I need to really wrap up this project. Ooh, I need to finish getting this thing put together. A lot of women will feel a natural instinct to tie up loose ends. And when you're conscious of it, you know what's coming, you're prepared, you're really working through it properly. So it's really helpful to know that that's what's happening next.
Right. And when you're not conscious, you'll start a lot of stuff.
You start a bunch of projects.
And you'll beat the heck out of yourself, calling yourself lazy, inefficient, yada, yada, yada. So this is brilliant, ladies. As you if you listen to this, I'm taking notes, and this is the second time I'm taking notes. I'm going to have a conversation with Stasha. Because this will really, really help you have less struggle, more ease in your life, help simplify things on many levels. And a lot of women in my community, they want to learn themselves, right? They want to get to know themselves and connect to themselves before they start attracting a new partner. So, you know, I'm hoping, you know, ladies, as you're listening to this, you're taking notes and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. And that makes sense. Because as Stasha was talking about, that one day when you want to take a nap and you feel sleepy, that's when I feel moody, right? And I was labeled myself that way. But I think what it is that I never give myself permission to slow down, right? So as you slow down, then, you know, the need for the conflict or whatever that thing is happening is also kind of all, you know, is that accurate?
Yeah, because that's just what's happening with your hormones. Your estrogen and your testosterone just crashed. That means your energy and your confidence just declined rapidly in about 24 hours. And it doesn't mean that you're any less awesome as you were the day before. You just don't feel as awesome. But when you know that's coming, the conversation in your brain can change from, God, I'm such a loser, to, oh, my estrogen and my testosterone must be receding because I don't feel like a rock star at the top of my fame and fortune pile. All right, well, that's okay, because tomorrow I'm going to feel better.
I love that attitude.
You can completely change the conversation in your brain instead of blaming yourself to going, oh, well, this is what happened. That's cool. That doesn't mean I'm any less awesome. I just don't feel as awesome today, but that's okay because it's going to come back. So why don't I just move forward with the same confidence I had yesterday and keep going? And that's the thing, like, you can rest, you can relax, you can enjoy that day of rest. You know, I tend to just let my clients book through during that post-ovulation dip. But then instead of pushing myself to maybe do the other outside things, I just focus on my clients for that day, take a nap in between, make sure I get a good lunch, that kind of thing, just to take care of myself. Because then I know I'm getting the second wind of estrogen. I know I'm going to want to just wrap up the loose ends. I know that I'm going to get into that same, like, ooh, I'm going to just wrap the stuff up phase that's coming next. So I can take a little bit of a break. And then I'll go into that. All right, great. It's time to wrap up stuff, not start things, but wrap things up. So that's when you go through that list and knock it out.
Right. Deep luteal.
So, right. So then you move into that deep luteal phase. This is 3 to 4 days before you get your period. This is when women consider themselves in PMS, except that PMS is not a phase of your cycle. It is a hormonal imbalance. So deep luteal, which is your fall or autumn phase, it's that time when it is time to turn inside. It is time to, a lot of women have this instinct, like, they look around and go, my God, this place is a mess. I need to do laundry. There's nothing in the refrigerator. Everything's just a disaster. And it's when we don't really want to work. It's that time when you open up your computer screen and you go, oh God, I don't know I can do this.
Sit on the couch and play on your phone.
Yeah. It's definitely that time where, rather than making it worse, which is really what working during this time generally does, you end up just boggling things, and then you have to go fix them, and it takes 3 times as long when you could have just left it alone. Is really it. And it's really that time where, if you've been using your cycle, you've been working proficiently and efficiently all month long, you've gotten a month's worth of work done. You're done. You've got a couple of days now where, you know what, I give you permission to not do laundry the rest of the month and do it here while you binge watch an entire season of Grey's Anatomy. Maybe that's just me. But that's where you have, like, go ahead and do your batch cooking. Go ahead and do the laundry that you didn't do all month. Like, I give you permission to stop making these things, I have to do this every day, I have to be on top of this all of the time, and go, you know what? I'm going to let this stuff go. I'm going to just focus on my business and my relationships during this part of my month. And in this point, I'm going to take my me time. I'm going to do my laundry, buy all of the pillows, whatever it is that you feel like you want to do, nest and rest. Eat the good food, relax. And then you don't have PMS. You don't have the mood swings. You don't have the overwhelming fatigue because you're allowing yourself and your body the time to rest, relax, open up. Do you have a couple of clients? Maybe. But if you're doing this and you're working your business with flow, you've got some calendar blocks that week. So you've got 1 or 2 clients booking in, not a whole day's worth.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I actually remember batch cooking a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, what the heck? I just made 5 dishes in one afternoon. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. That's exactly it, right? And when we're living our lives in flow, we've got a good idea. We've tapped into our instincts. We've listened to our intuition. We know what kind of foods we want. We went out. We bought all of the food during that Loodle phase, the early Loodle phase. We did a big grocery shop. We've come back, and now all we have to do is tuck in for a couple of days, cook, eat, relax, Netflix binge, just kick it. Drink the tea. Drink all of the tea. Get the good tea out.
Very good. Very good. So cravings, right?
Yeah.
So cravings is another big one. Since you're talking about the food, I thought that would be a good one to ask. And I feel like my cravings totally out of control during that time, and I just give up and I just don't do anything. But I know that there's a mindful way for us to navigate through cravings where we don't feel like we restrict or push and pull our body. And so would you mind sharing a couple of things that work for you so we don't gain back all the 5 pounds that we lost 2 weeks before during
part of that phase is that you are going to retain weight. Like your body really thinks that it's pregnant or it could be pregnant, and its job right now is to protect that baby, and it does not care if you think you're fat or not. It's taking care of what could potentially be a baby. So you're going to retain weight whether you want to or not during that. I mean, even as an athlete, even when I had a freaking 6-pack for abs, you still put on a couple of pounds during that phase, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, it's going to go away.
And I didn't even know that until I started paying attention to this, that a few days before and a few days after, so like there's a week where your weight will be off, and that's totally fine. And it's between 2 and 5 pounds, I think, or
yeah, and that's totally normal, and there's nothing wrong, and you didn't do anything wrong, and there's nothing that you can do to really change it unless you want to get really unhealthy, and I do not recommend that route. So I know what eating disorders can do to somebody, so don't do that. Just go, you know what, in another week it's gonna go. It's not, I don't have to deal with this, it's fine. That said, there are definitely healthy ways to deal with your cravings. Our most common cravings are salt and sweet. So my recommendation is, what is that thing that you crave, be it salty, sweet, or both? What is the thing though? Is it ice cream? Is it cookies? Is it chocolate? Is it potato chips? Is it popcorn?
The sweet ice cream and salty potato chips.
Yeah. So then the recommendation is, get the really good versions of those things. Like if it's ice cream and you know dairy messes with you, then go splurge and get yourself the coconut ice cream. Like, get the better version of it for you. And I'm going to tell you a secret. Dairy is almost bad for every woman in this phase of the cycle. It kicks out the hormonal imbalance. It will inflame it. So if you can get the non-dairy versions, go get it. Like, I know it's more money, but this is your chance to spring for it. And you'll probably eat less anyway.
Chocolate is another option. So that would be,
yes. Get the good chocolate, because what you're doing is you're craving magnesium, you're craving minerals. The sweetness is craving comfort. So where are these things lacking? And how can you do it? So one of the things that I like to do is make chocolate chia pudding. That's one of my favorite go-tos for this phase of the cycle. The fiber helps get rid of any of the excess hormones that can cause mood swings, bloating, fatigue, brain fog. So the chia seeds are really just great for helping reduce the symptoms.
Yeah, they in all my smoothies.
Yeah. So when you make a chocolate chia pudding and you stick it in the fridge, you can just pull it out and eat it like you would ice cream. Like, I'm
And
not
this
saying don't,
everyone.
but add it in, right? So like instead of eating a whole pint of ice cream, maybe you have a half a pint of chia pudding and a half a pint of ice cream,
Like it. Okay.
right?
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
So you're helping support the hormones, but you're not depriving yourself at the same time. I'm a chips person. The saltiness is always my thing. So I make sure that I have chips that are made with like coconut oil or avocado oil, because I'm going to eat the chips. It's not a question of will I eat the chips or not. The question is, am I going to eat the chips? Yes, that's the answer. I am. But could I pick the better ones? Yes. So I like to I have air popper for popcorn. I like to make myself some popcorn where I salt and I get good grass-fed butter and some nutritional yeast because I like that cheesy flavor. So I make myself some popcorn. I get myself a bag of avocado oil chips that are, small batch made or whatever, because I'm going to do it. And then I like to dip my chips into my chocolate chia pudding and eat them.
That's
Yeah.
not gross at all. Yeah.
I'm just saying it's delicious. But if you're going to have them, it's not about beating it, it's about joining it, right? If you can't beat them, join them. So how can you do it in a way that's better for you? And can you add in some things that will actually help support those hormones? And yes, getting a lot of really good fiber in. I love sweet potatoes, roast them, throw a little vanilla and butter, good grass-fed butter, and cinnamon and nutmeg on them. You've got a superfood dessert for women. It's so good. It boosts your immune system with all the antioxidants, that beautiful orange color. You've got the fiber, which helps pull down your excess hormones. The sweetness, the way that sweet potatoes and these kind of root vegetables are, actually helps reduce the estrogen levels that are usually too high, which is causing a lot of the PMS problems. It's just a certain kind of fiber that really binds to the estrogen. A raw carrot a day too actually helps. So just, there's some tips and tricks that you can do of things that you can just add in that will actually help reduce symptoms. So you don't have to worry about cutting yourself off. You just have to think about incorporating.
Right. This is beautiful. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So let's talk just a little bit about men and period.
Yeah.
Which is, both how to navigate through dating and, this early stage human attraction kind of period, and also how to communicate, this area of your life with men. So, and I know that you have a man in your life. So how do you, what I mean? How do you talk about this? And so any tips on him and man and period, or man and menstrual?
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So in the dating world, I always say set your dates up, especially first dates, for your follicular and ovulation phases.
Yeah.
It's just when your communication is at its peak. It's also when you're giving off those hot, sexy pheromones. You might as well use it to your advantage. So, if you're trying to get out of a relationship or a date with somebody, save it for your luteal phase. But if you're trying to get into one, save it for, and that's the thing, like, especially if you're chatting with somebody and you're like, oh boy, I'm just real busy these 2 weeks, but I can definitely set up a date for this day when you are in that follicular ovulation phase. It's a great, this is when I'm available and this is the best option for me. And hopefully you'll keep some communication open during that time and you'll really enjoy the flirtation.
Right, and I like how you said during the other two phases, that's a natural off hormones, So break up the work later.
Absolutely. And here's a little insider tip too. Birth control changes who you're attracted to. So if you're on birth control, you will be attracted to different people than when you're off of it. So a lot of women, and I see this happen, especially in my community, like my Facebook group, I see this come up from time to time, where women will come off of birth control when they're married because they want to have kids, and suddenly they have no turn on for their partner. It's just changes how we're attracted to people, because we have a safety mechanism built in where when we think that we are pregnant, which birth control kind of mimics our pregnancy or menopause, it shuts down our ovaries, turns them off, shrinks them, shrinks the clitoris. It just turns all of our sex drive off. So our built-in mechanism when we're pregnant is to find people who are closer genetic relations attractive, because they're more likely to help you with the child, right? And somebody who's within your family is more likely to help you keep that child safe. Whereas when you're fertile and looking for a partner, you're attracted to a diverse or genetic partner, because that creates a healthier child. So it's just one of the things I suggest if you're in dating land is perhaps learn your cycle and when you're fertile. And if you're dating, you should be using a freaking condom every time anyway, because high STIs. So maybe try getting off of the birth control, because it's going to change who you're attracted to.
Right. And hormones and an impact on our body, and hormones really huge. Yeah, I gave up birth control many years ago, and we just using some alternative methods or whatever, because I noticed it messes up with my with how my body works, right? Both mental, emotional, and physical. Fantastic.
So, but when we move into relationships, that's when it's time to have those kind of conversations where you can actually know yourself, right? And I'm sure that you talk about this with clients, and I'm sure that this comes up in relationship work, where it's like, the more that you know what turns you on, the better you can communicate that in bed, right? Well, it's the same principle. The more you know what works, how you're feeling, what's going to be good for you, the more you can communicate that in your relationship. So a lot of the times I'll be talking to the hottie, as we call him. Chris is his name. But I'll be talking to him, and he'll have a suggestion for something to do. And I'll say like, oh my God, that sounds great. Can we book that in 2 weeks when I'm in follicular?
Yeah.
Like he'll come up and he'll be like, oh my God, I found this really great hike. I think we should go try it. I'm like, that sounds fantastic, but I'm not hiking this week. So what about we do that next weekend?
Very good. I like, I think with me and my partner, we both are entrepreneurs at heart. So we often talk about new business ideas, and sometimes he'll come and he'll like hit me so hard with his, creative energy and some things, that he's thinking to implement in his business. And I was like, ooh, Yeah. And I'm wondering how, and it's probably because I'm in one of those phases when I'm not ready for new ideas or brainstorm. Where usually that's how I am.
Absolutely.
Kind of stuff. I think it's sexy. But there are specific times, and we had this conversation lately, and I said, listen, sometimes evenings just have to be no business though.
Yes.
And it's not even always, because I genuinely think business is sexy and I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, you lead. If you feel like it's a no-go, find a way, say, honey, well, just can I take a break from the difference tonight, and say, I will not take it personally. So you're absolutely right. I think once you understand like your cycle and your phases, there's a way to find a really good language to talk somebody without saying, shut up. Yeah. I'm not interested.
Yeah. No, I'm often just taking his hands and looking at him going, babe, I love you. I'm in Loodle right now. And I can't wait to have this discussion in about 2 weeks.
Fantastic. This is a really
Let's write this down and let's come back to this, but I cannot do it right now. But I'm educating too, right? Like, this is where I am. This is what doesn't feel good right now. I can't wait to talk about it when I'm not in this phase, and I will let you know when that is, or you'll know, because you'll know when I get my period, and you can go, okay, so now that you've gotten your period, you've shifted, do you want to talk about this now?
Right.
So,
and also, like, I tend to take things 10 times more personal when I am, a couple of days before, because we've gotten into really ugly fight over something that he said so mindfully and so kindly. He said, it wasn't a reflection on you, it was reflection on me. And I was like, I can see it now. I did not see it 4 days ago.
Yeah.
And so we had a conversation about the fact that during these times, it's important for both of us to be mindful of that dynamic. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm still learning on how to navigate it with more grace, because I
Yeah.
when I get, upset, I'm not the one who's going to talk things out and say, hi, that this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll remove myself from the scene, but that's creating distance, right? Not connecting.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, yeah, you got to bridge that gap, right? So this is one of the reasons why knowing when you ovulate is important, even if you're not doing fertility, like you're not trying or not trying to get pregnant, but just knowing when you ovulate is really handy, because that's that conversation. Like, okay, I ovulated. I'm in my early luteal phase, so I'm still feeling good. I'm still getting things done, but I just want to let you know that this is where I am. That means in 6 days, 7 days, like the more you chart, the more you're going to know. But you can say, like, I know next week I'm going to be far more sensitive to things, and I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that I'm balancing my hormones so I'm not as out of balance, but I also know that it's not the time to bring things up with me. It's going to be a really great time for us to binge watch or movie or snuggle on the couch. I mean, we often just read. I mean, we read 2 books, cuddled under a blanket together with a bowl of popcorn and cups of tea.
yeah,
And it's just like, this is just what we need to be doing right now.
yeah.
And
Beautiful.
it's good. And, it gives him permission too, to have those down days. So it's like, I need to just sit here and read a book. If you want to work, if you want to get things done, if you want to go shoot video, you go do that. I'm super stoked for you to get some stuff done. But also, if you just would like an evening to read and cuddle, and I can't tell you, more often than not, it's like he's just like, oh God, you know what? I have a book that I've been dying to read and I haven't had a chance. And I would love to just take some rest.
Fantastic.
It
Yeah.
gives them permission to have rest and downtime too. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
And it helps both partners respect each other's need for rest.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. This is so great. Thank you so much, Stasha. I'm just super excited. Like my whole body's like buzzing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have this
energy. I just love talking to you. You have beautiful energy.
it's just a fun conversation to have, right? And I especially love it with relationships, because there's just so many things that you can be doing, like even your sex life, right? Like, he knows, okay, I'm through ovulation now. That means we're going to need a lot more foreplay. And we're going to need some more time and connection. And he's super aware of that. And we've had conversations like, okay, so your vulva and labia engorge the more turned on you get, right? And change color. So we've had this conversation like as things are heating up, where I'm going, yeah, but has anything changed color yet? Because if not, you need to get back down there.
Very good.
Right. So like, the more awareness you have of how things work and how things are happening, and the more you can go, and we can start, and I can say like, hey, look, I'm in this little phase. First of all, go grab the coconut oil, because I'm going to need extra lubrication. Like, it's just not enough in this phase for me to not have, I'm not going to have uncomfortable sex. So
Oil?
yeah, I mean, we don't need to use any kind of prophylactics, so we just use coconut oil as our lube.
Jar in my pantry.
Yeah, well, we have a little jar that we use for next to the bed.
Thank you for the tip.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, grab, it's like all I have to do is grab it. And that's, first of all, that's a signal of where I am in my cycle. Is I know before we even get started that I'm going to need this extra help, this extra lubrication. So it's just there. And that's the conversation. It's like, hey, babe, just heads up. Like, I'm in luteal, so this is going to take a while. So are you willing to invest the time and effort into this? Or do you just want to like have seconds of dinner? So it's a little bit of a conversation where he's like, he's never been like, yeah, let's just go eat. He's like, no, let's get into this.
Right. And
Right.
this is so beautiful and so juicy. And men don't know this, and they will never know this until we tell them. And we will never tell them until we understand this
No.
dynamic and this cycles. And I really like how you said that our life is very cycle kind of based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something that I teach my clients. And so my work is more about emotions and limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the dynamics that women experience in is, especially in dating, right? They go like high, 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 right? When
Mm-hmm.
they crash low, 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 right?
Yeah.
What I teach them is that you can still go high and enjoy it, but then don't crash to rest. Learn how to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go and ride, those highs, but then just rest, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes that rest means if you do have a partner, then you both just rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are in a dating phase, just take a break, a little bit of time for yourself to rejuvenate, to process, to
Yeah.
integrate some things, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going down on yourself and start beating yourself up and start going into the old patterns. So if you're playing bad movies or dealing with things that are
Yeah.
like 10 years ago, right? And so this is really fascinating. So as you're listening to us, ladies, so start noticing some of your cycles,
Mm-hmm.
both emotional and physical, because navigating through this, it's one of the best things they can do for yourself, right? Know
Absolutely.
thyself. And then it's the biggest gift to your either partner or future potential.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had a partner. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've had booty calls and friends with benefits and relationships, and I've had relationships with women and men. So like literally when I say I've done this with everyone, I mean it. And not one person has been like, well, that's silly, I'm not going to do that. Every single person that I have had this conversation with, from casual booty call to in-depth relationship, has been like, oh my God, this is so helpful.
Helpful.
Because rather than going like, why didn't this work this time? Or like, I must be failing because you're not coming 10 times tonight, which you did last week. Or you don't want to go, do the gym round, or like, you don't want to go for this crazy hike with me. You must not be interested anymore. Instead, it's like, babe, I would love to spend all day with you. I just don't want to be moving. Like, can we have a picnic in the park? Can we go watch a movie? Can we, get tickets to the symphony or something? Like, there's just a million different ways that you can still connect. But instead of them going, I don't understand, you're explaining it. And not one person has ever been like, ugh, I don't need to know that. Every one of them has been like, oh my God, this is so helpful. Thank you.
Fantastic. So ladies, I hope you got a lot out of this interview. I know I did. And, I definitely probably going to listen to this one more time. It's so juicy, it's so wonderful. And I recommend you do the same, especially take good notes on the phases and then the length. Now, Stasha, would you mind telling us a little bit about the next steps for women who would like to learn more and to go deeper with this knowledge? I've heard about your mandala, and I heard about your fantastic book, The Revolution Will Be Bloody. The name itself, like, right? So tell us a little bit more where we can learn about you and how we can continue this work.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to theperiodcoach.com, so include theperiodcoach.com, you will see there's a link to The Revolution Will Be Bloody. So you can click on that and it'll take you to a page which will explain about the book and, if you want the ebook or the paperback. And then the mandala is actually, if you get the paperback, there's a link in the book that goes towards it, or the ebook, either one. But it's called Enter the Red Circle, and there's a free version on my site as well. And then I have a Facebook group, which is free, which you're always welcome to join. It's called the Red Circle Lady Business.
Yes, yes.
Ask questions, post comments, observations, questions. It's quite literally, I get messages from women all the time and I constantly respond, you should go ask this in the Facebook group. It's the perfect place for it. So it's a really good companion, especially. So like the Revolution Will Be Bloody goes in depth. We talk about how we got here. We talk about the phases. It's broken up into 5. So you get the differences between the little phases. You can really get to feel the nuances in your body. We talk about all 6 senses and how you can support your hormones through all 6 senses, each phase of your cycle. So it's just a great, and I say at the beginning of the book, there's so many options here. Take the ones that sound good, that you enjoy, leave the rest. This is about having something for everybody. So no matter where you are in the world, free to higher income, doesn't matter. There's an option there for everyone that they can actually use to help balance their cycles, their hormones, and really get to know their bodies.
Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and grab that mandala right now and order your book because I'm going to for a while as soon as we get off the call. But thank you so much, Stasha, for your time, for your amazing energy, and for all this wonderful information that we don't have enough in the world. But thank you for doing this revolution and bringing it to our attention and helping us be more aware of our bodies and how it affects on the deepest level our relationships. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Stasha. It's been such a pleasure, and I'll be including the link to your website and to your group so the ladies can go and learn more about your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stasha.